I want to talk to you about the MG brand. Now, back in 2019, when AutoEV was in its relative infancy, we road tested the then new ZS EV, and we really liked it, and we still do. We rate it as one of the best EVs on the market. And I said back then, it sort of depends on your age as to how you view the MG brand. Some will view it as a very sort of like old kind of vintage and classic and low cost volume sports car brand. Some will see it, like myself, as sort of the performance variant of Austin Rover Group during the 1980s. Some will see it from the 1990s when they relaunched themselves with MG4 and obviously performance derivatives of the then Rover brand. But now we have the new MG that others will see it as, that offers good value for money, no nonsense family cars, with EVs being a bit of a speciality. Now, as I say, we know and love the ZS EV, and we rate the MG5, the all-electric estate car, which is just about to get a midlife refresh. But this is the big one. This is the one that's really, really going to stand the brand apart if it stands any chance of being taken seriously. Because 40% of the UK market is made up of the C-sector family hatchback. In other words, mid-sized family cars such as the Ford Focus, the Vauxhall Astra, the Volkswagen Golf, and so forth. And now MG are wading into battle with this, the all-electric MG4. The question is it any good? And can you take it seriously? Well, without further ado, welcome to a rather blustery autumnal day. Welcome to the new MG4, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get on with this week's road test of the new MG4, it is of course that time where I ask you to make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Once you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button that's down below as well, because then that way you're notified of when our next video goes live. If you've watched it and you like it, make sure you do give it a thumbs up and leave us some comments, good or bad. Let us know how we're doing as a channel, and let us know your thoughts on the cars that we review. Have you ordered an MG4? Are you in the marketplace for the car? Any questions you have, let us know in the comments. Okay, so the MG4. Why is this such an important car for MG? Well, as I say, first of all, it is the biggest sector of the UK market, so it's a really important car for us in the UK. But the other thing is, this is the brand's first scalable EV platform. So in other words, this is the first ground up EV that they've built, and that's why this is going to be very, very important. This platform is going to go on to underpin future products from the brand. And they are the UK's fastest growing brand, with sales figures usually over 100% of what they were the previous year, with new dealers coming on board. So as I say, they are a fast growing brand, and people are starting to take them very, very seriously indeed, so they can't really afford to get it wrong. And as I said, this is the biggest market sector in the UK, and there is an absolute glut of talent moving into this space. The Volkswagen ID3, the Cupra Born, Citroen's EC4, the brilliant Renault Megane E-Tech, and of course future products from Stellantis Group. So, does the MG4 have what it takes? Well, the only way we're going to find it is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers use to deliver a definitive and truthful verdict. And of course, that's the AutoEV one. So let's crack on and see what we think. So let's start with styling. Now, up until now, I have been the one, hands up, who has said MG styling wasn't the most exciting in the world. It was a little bit nondescript, verging on the sort of bland, if you like. Nothing wrong with the cars, they just weren't particularly exciting to look at. They weren't particularly lookers. They hadn't really kind of found their style in my book. Well, am I eating my words with this car? I think this is a brilliant looking car. This is sharp, and I mean that literally. Look at these beautiful creases that come down here. These wonderful headlights, LED headlamps, standard. The indicators down here, just in these kind of slashes, love that. This wonderful indent in the bonnet, brilliant, absolutely phenomenal. And the way the whole thing just curves down at this kind of pointed nose, I mean, it makes an ID3 look frumpy, let's be honest. I mean, the Cupra Born I like, but this I think is probably just a little bit better, if I'm honest with you. I love the sharp front end, this phenomenal big MG octagon, wearing it bold and proud, brilliant. Down here you've got active cooling vents on this model here, again, that will open and close depending obviously on what's needed by the battery and the motors. And then this lower kind of front splitter, and you get some textured bits in there and a little bit of kind of almost kind of carbon fibre like bits down there. I think this is absolutely, I think this is a great looking car in this sector and really, really stand out. This is MG has found their style, and if this is what future product looks like, I am on board with this. And again, down the side, it's the same. 17-inch alloy wheels. Well, I say alloy wheels, they are alloys. These are got these aero covers over the top of them, but 17-inch wheels are standard, and as I say, underneath those aero covers, they are alloys. You've got, again, this kind of nice sharp crease that runs along here and then disappears into the back door, only for this other crease that's slightly higher to come out of the window line and feed all the way across into the back lights. Brilliant. Look at this section here, the way it kind of comes up and pinches the bodywork down as well. Brilliant. Blacked out B-pillar to give the glass house a real kind of swoop back. Love that. Nice big chunky door handles. Big excellent mirrors which give great view back, and again really nicely styled. I think this is a real sharp looking car. I absolutely love this. And then at the back, well, again, distinctive as it is at the front, although it will depend on the model that you have. Now we'll go on to trims and specs, as you know, in the pricing section, but basically there are 3 models in the range. This is the top spec Trophy, so this gets a slightly different rear end to the lower specification SE models. You get this kind of twin roof spoiler here, which obviously adds to the aerodynamic qualities of the car. Actually brings the range down a little bit, if I'm honest with you, but again, I'll talk about that later on. But I like that. I like the way these kind of twin roof spoilers. This rear light bar is brilliant. You see it at night. It's got this wonderful kind of light graphic that's going on in the top here, and you've the light bar that goes across. Again, you don't get that on the SC. It's only on the Trophy model. Really nice kind of sharp distinctive tail lights, and then this kind of nice swept up kind of rear end, kind of almost diffuser like there. MG badge again, sort of like hidden behind these kind of this light, this perspex light there. Big bold MG4 badge, and then you've got your parking sensors there and a little reverse camera tucked up in there. However, no rear wiper. Now, I know everyone's going to start commenting on this about my thing with rear wipers, because they're going to say, ah, well, the airflow, it clears the screen. Trust me on this, it doesn't. I left the other day to do a really long journey after a night when it was lashing it down, and as I was driving along on the motorway, it created a vortex about here, so all I could see was this water swirling around here. For goodness sake, manufacturers, fit rear wipers to cars. You've got all these safety systems going on, your lane keep assist, your radar guided cruise control, autonomous braking, brilliant, that's fine. Give me something basic that I can actually see out of a bloody window. That's all I'm asking for. Anyway, that's the only blight I would say on the MG4 for me in terms of the way that it looks. Is it the best looking car in its class? No. I think the Megane is a better looking car, but as I say, I do prefer it certainly over the Volkswagen ID3. I think it edges out the Cupra Born for me. The Citroen EC4, I do love the Citroen, but this is sharp. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below, as always. How does it fare for practicality? Well, middle of the road, if I'm being honest with you. 363 litres, which is about 20 litres down on the ID3 and the Cupra Born, and way below where the Renault Megane E-Tech is, one of its other big rivals. There is, however, another car coming into this sector from another Chinese brand, which I can't really tell you about at the moment, but you're going to see it in another video, but it is way bigger than that car, for instance. However, for a dedicated EV platform, it's a bit odd. It doesn't have any cable storage. The cables come in this bag, and if you lift up here, there isn't really any space underneath there. There's your tyre inflation kit and your warning triangle, but that's it. So there's no underfloor storage, and the boot seems quite kind of shallow almost. So let me show you in terms of the suitcases. You've got to play a little bit of Jenga with them, if I'm honest with you. I can get the medium one, if I kind of put it there, and then the bigger one kind of goes that way. They won't go that way, there's not enough depth, and then I can get a carry-on down the side there, but I can't get anything else in. That's going to be it. And you've got to really slam the boot down to actually close it as well. So it's okay, but it's not brilliant. Now, there's a standard 60-40 split on the rear seat, as you'd expect. And if you knock that down, if you take the rear seats down, then what you're then increasing the size to is 1,177 litres. So it kind of depends obviously on what you're looking for the car for. It's okay, as I say, it's fairly average for class, but I must mark it down a little bit. There's no, as I say, there's no storage there, and even again on a dedicated EV platform, there's no space up at the front. It's a rear drive platform, so there's no motor at the front. It's all to do with the heating and ventilation controls. So it's average in terms of practicality when it comes to luggage space. Okay, rear seat space. Well, again, not the worst, but not the best either. It's fine for legroom. So I've set the seat up obviously as you would expect for myself, and I'm between 5'7" and 5'8". It's okay for footroom. It's all right. It's not too bad. And as I say, I like my seat quite low. It's a little bit tight if you had bigger feet than me. But what I do feel is my legs are a little bit pushed up, just a little bit. But what is quite nice is they've actually sort of like curved the seat squab up a little bit as well. So there is a bit of support there. Headroom's fine for me. And I would think if you are even approaching, you know, closer to 6 foot, you're going to be all right. I would think the only time you might find it a bit tight is if you're a 6 foot driver in front of you, just coming back that little bit more. So you'd be a bit more like that, I would think. But again, I can't really knock it for seat space for somebody of my size, and certainly children. If you've got children in the back, it's fine. My daughter's been in this car all week, and she's been finding it absolutely fine. There's no centre armrest, however, so storage is limited to the mat pockets on the backs of the front seats and these little pockets up here, so you can kind of jab a phone down in, or sweeties or whatever you want kind of in there. There is some door bins in the side, but they won't take, or they will take a smallish water bottle. As I say, she would get her water bottle in there, but my bigger one wouldn't fit. As I say, flat floor, or relatively flat floor, so the centre person would be okay, but again, I wouldn't recommend kind of 3 adults. It's fine for 3 kids, but then again, probably not a lot of these hatchbacks are probably ideal for 3 adults, in fairness. There's one USB port which is on the back of the front centre console, so that's nice and easy to get access to, and there's a bit of storage there, and it's pushed far enough forward, so again, if you did have someone in the centre, their feet would be okay. So yeah, so it's okay. As I say, it's better in the back than I would suggest the Renault Megane E-Tech, and it's probably on a par with the ID3 and the Cupra Born and the Citroen EC4 as well. But as I say, as long as you're kind of under the 6 foot bracket, I would think that you wouldn't have any worries in here. The other thing to consider, obviously, if you're carrying children, is the ISOFIX points, and they are hidden, but well hidden. You've got just this little kind of velcroed flap that you pull down there, and that gives you access in there. So better than some where you're jabbing the prongs of the ISOFIX seat between the backrest and the squab, but not as well executed as others that have got that nice little plastic flap, but okay. So how do we feel about the driving environment? Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Couple of things that I'll get off my chest first and foremost. The screen layout, it's okay. So you get 2 screens. You get this driver display in front of us, which is a 7-inch display. Let's talk about cars that we can relate to that we've reviewed recently, so like the Cupra Born, and obviously subsequently the ID3, its cousin, because I was quite kind of critical. We ran a Cupra Born as a long-term test car, and I said I didn't really like the kind of small information display. There wasn't enough information being displayed right in front of me. The MG has got that information displayed in front of me, but it's quite busy. It's quite a busy little screen, this. See, you can't knock it because it's got everything you want on it, but they're trying to fit it into a slightly smaller space. I wonder whether or not it might not have been better to have all this kind of integrated, a bit like Kia and Hyundai do, so you've got twin displays, so this just feels a bit more kind of spaced out. That's the only thing I will say about this screen. It's fine, I can't knock, you know, as I say, it's got everything there that I need to see. So if you've got, if you're driving along, it's got the cameras where you can see other cars around you, and obviously it'll adjust your radar guided cruise control here, and your lane keep assist, it tells you it's on there. You've got your battery state of charge, your range left, your speed, the speed of the road that you're on, and then this side here you can control via this little toggle switch on the steering wheel. So navigation, you could have that there, you can adjust the brightness, you can have your media on there as well. tyre pressures and things like that, and then, as I say, your trip computer. So there is a lot going on in that little space. That's my only gripe with that particular screen. Moving across to this one, this 10.25 inch display here, again, it's okay. When a lot of channels where you'll have seen the MG4's reviews went to the launch of the car and had got to drive it around for a couple of hours and that. I've been living with this car for over a week, and I've done some lot of miles in this car now, and I'm starting to realise little gripes with it that I think you should be aware of, so bear with me on this. When we drove the first ZS back in 2019, it had a really clunky screen, the infotainment screen. It just didn't work properly. You had to keep prodding at it, and it was very basic. It looked like a real kind of low rent kind of screen, and they improved it. And again, that's the same as you have here, and you do have standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so that's fine. My only gripe here is it's not the most interactive of screens. A couple of times this week where I've wanted to adjust something, it's taken me a couple of see, it's 2 or 3 presses, and it's not quite registering my, you know, trying to go back. Look, it's not doing it, and you've got to keep pressing it, and that's what was happening the other day, which would be fine if it was all that it controlled was things like navigation and media, but it doesn't. It controls everything else. In other words, your climate control is through here as well. Your heated seats. I mean, if you press the climate function, it comes up here. This heated seat button is tiny. And the other day I was trying to get it just to 1 on level 1 as I was driving up the M40 at kind of 70 miles an hour. It wasn't ideal. It really isn't. The graphics are too small, and like we said with the Cupra, there's too many layers to go through to do something basic like turn the heated seat on. And as I say, the screen doesn't work all the time when you do it. So again, I like the fact that it has it. I like the fact it's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard. I love all of that, and it's okay. But I just feel there's just too much to go through to do something really, really basic to control your climate. Now, what I will caveat that with, however, is there is a voice function on it. So you can press a button here and say things like, you know, set temperature to 20 degrees or whatever. And that seems to work okay, although it didn't understand me trying to set the level of my heated seat. It just wouldn't function. I had to use the screen to go through that. There are some shortcut buttons underneath it. So one for the climate, one for the heat, you know, for the maximum defrost, one for your heated rear screen. There's a home button, and there's there's a volume button there for your radio, obviously, or your media. So again, there are some physical buttons. I'd maybe like to have seen maybe, say, the volume controls, because you can operate that from the steering wheel, is being the up and down for the temperature or something, and maybe just a button for the heated seats. So that's my gripe there, if I'm being honest with you. The other gripe that I have as well is a couple of times I've had the odd little fault creep in. So it came up with, it's got one of these SOS call buttons, and I did quite a long journey with it the other day, and from out of nowhere it said that function had been deactivated. Don't know why. It said there was a fault, and that was it. The other thing that stopped working was this control on the steering wheel for the volume. So I was trying to change the volume of the media I was listening to, my Spotify, and it wouldn't do it here. And for 2 days it hasn't done it. Today it's come back. It will work off this. So I don't know what happened there. But as I say, you've got volume control there. So yeah, so it's not perfect. It's what I'm trying to say. It's not perfect. But the rest of the cabin I do quite like. There's 2 more gripes which I'll get to. I like this floating console part here that kind of juts out, and with your rotary for the transmission. I like that. Park, reverse, neutral, drive, and obviously park is the centre button. Electronic park brake. The trophy model, like I have, has got wireless charging, which is this pad here. This is the thing I've got here. So it's not wireless CarPlay or Android Auto. So MG provides you with these cables that come up, which I think are they're not very neat, and you can see they're starting to fray already. So they're going to need replacing at some point, and they're kind of plugged in down here. So yeah, I think that's a bit of an untidy solution, I think. I'm not sure how hard it would have been to do wireless CarPlay. A lot of cars now have it. That's really sort of my... Oh no, the only other thing that I wasn't very keen on, although I have changed my mind a little bit, is this blooming square steering wheel. To my knowledge, MG never made an Allegro. Well, they do now. Why is this square? Why does that need to be square? I have got more used to it. I hated it at first. I have got a bit more used to it. I love the two-spoke design. I really like that. But I just liked a round wheel. There's a bit times where you're turning it, just feels a bit uncomfortable in the heel of your hand. I don't really get why they've done that. I will say, however, is the physical buttons on the wheel are really good. And again, we're getting into the winter months. You can press these with gloves on. So if you're wearing gloves when you're driving, all the controls, bar that touch screen, you can actually use gloves with. So again, turning your volume up and down, going to the home page, heated rear screen, altering the volume here, the cruise control on the steering wheel as well. They're physical buttons. If you're wearing gloves, you can operate all the controls. Brilliant. That's excellent. Talking of the other controls, the quality of them is really good. The indicator stock, you turn it on, it feels like you've done something, you've actually made something work. Your lights, are on there, your wipers on this side, mirror controls are down by your right knee. There is bags of storage. So underneath here, this floating console, we get the two cup holders, which I can get my big coffee flask into there. See, there's that cable that's getting in the way there now. See, that's the thing. I don't like that. And then a big water bottle in there. The big water bottle will also go down into the door because there's a section of the door it's shaped to take. So I can't knock that. And then behind that, we've got another tray where my sunglasses can go. And then you can cover that up. Nice armrest, comfortable. It's got a deep kind of cubby in there, and there's a little net on the front of it you can put things into. You've got a glove box there, which is big enough for gloves, which is good. I like that. The seats are really worthy of a mention. They've got this, again, on this trophy model, this leatherette side and then this material in the middle, which reminds me of my old Rover 214 SEI demonstrator from 1995, which funnily enough was the same colour on the outside, Nightfire Red. There you go. But these are really comfortable seats. They have long squabs, so there's enough support underneath your thighs. And although there isn't a tilt adjustment, when you move the seat up or down, it kind of, as you put it down, it sort of tilts at it goes down at the back and lifts at the front slightly. So my driving position has been perfect. You've also got reach and rake adjustment of the steering column as well, so that is perfect. Good visibility out of the car. As I say, these mirrors are brilliant. They've got really nice big clear mirrors. There's blind spot monitoring on it as part of the MG Pilot safety system as well. And there's a thing called MGI Smart, where you've got an app where you can go onto your phone and obviously tailor certain things, like see your state of charge or start the car, not start the car, but you know what I mean, set the time for charging and all of that. So that's very, very good as well. So, summary, really, I would say in terms of the interior, it is a big step on. I would say it's very competitive with class in terms of what you get, and in terms of the faults I can find with it, I could find fault with the other cars in its class as well, but that needs more work. That infotainment screen to me needs a little bit more work. When they facelift this car, that's the bit they need to concentrate on doing. It's not as bad as the Volkswagen ID3 system, it's not as bad as that, but it just needs to be the next generation on from my liking. That's the only thing I'll say. Otherwise, there's very little I can fault in here. The quality is good. You get nice materials up on top of the dash. As I say, I love the seat material. It feels good. Everything feels really well built and screwed together. Nothing feels like it rattles or creaks. You could argue there's a couple of sharper plastics down in the door bins or in certain places, but you don't tend to be touching them. And I would say, on the whole, this is class competitive, but that needs to be better. Now, how far you can go with your MG4 will depend on the trim level that you've bought. If you go for the SE, for instance, you get a choice of two batteries with it. It's either a 51 kilowatt hour battery, which is capable of a WLTP range of 218 miles, or you go for the SE long range, which has the bigger 64 kilowatt hour battery, which delivers a range of up to 281 miles on the WLTP scale. If you go for the high-spec Trophy, like I have here, you can only get that with the 64 kilowatt-hour battery, but the range actually drops to 270 miles because of the extra drag created by things like the rear spoilers and such like. The only thing I will say is, as I say, I've done some quite big journeys with this car, and a couple of times I've charged it absolutely up to full, and I know we're in the sort of like the kind of colder months, but I'm yet to see much more than about 220 miles out of this car. I kind of thought it might be a bit better than that, if I'm honest. Anyway, never mind. Charging speeds. Well, it'll take up to 150 kilowatts, and if you can find a charger capable of delivering that, then what you're looking at is your 10 to 80% benchmark on the smaller battery from the SE at around about 39 minutes, or the bigger battery, believe it or not, will charge slightly faster at 35 minutes. If you're charging from your home 7 kilowatt wall box, then obviously in terms of going from flat to full, you're probably looking at around about 9.5 hours. The other thing that the MG has is a vehicle to load system as well, so you can use the car to power external sources or provide charge to other electric vehicles with an adapter. Now, depending what battery you choose will also depend obviously on the motor that you get as well. So if you go for the standard, the lead-in SE with the standard range battery, then the motor that powers it will produce 170 PS, and that brings a 0 to 60 time of around about 7.5 seconds. If you go for the bigger long range battery in the SE long range or the Trophy model like this, then the power the motor produces is 203 PS. But believe it or not, the 0 to 60 time is actually a little bit slower at 7.7 seconds. It's a heavier battery and there's a bit more drag because of that rear spoiler. Excuse me. But the way the car feels is it's quick. It's acceptably quick. In other words, it's as fast as you'd want this style of car to be. I can't really see you needing much more, in fairness. And actually, when you're in the sport mode like I am at the moment, and you put your foot down, the car really does pick up and go. Also, the way the car drives is really nice. Again, it's a real kind of surprise, because again, if you were to compare it with its contemporaries, such as the ID3, the Citroën EC4, it drives on a par, if not what's better than an ID3. There's no doubt about that. It's not quite as sharp as the Megane E-Tech. That's the one thing I will say. The fluency of that Megane is wonderful. I absolutely love that car. And the fluency in its chassis and the steering feel and everything about it just makes me realise that is the driver's car of choice on all of these cars. The Citroen's a bit more comfortable, but it's not night and day. You just feel a better ride quality in the likes of the Citroen. The MG4 is good, it's very good, and it's not quite as refined as the Cupra. But again, like I was just saying with the Citroen, we're talking of a small percentile of difference here. We're not talking night and day. And it's only on, I would suggest, harsher road surfaces where you just get a little bit more noise coming off the road, a tiny bit more wind noise, but that's it, I would suggest. It's not suspension noise, which makes me think that you could maybe attribute it to the brand of tyres. Could be that. Anyway, let's get back to the main crux of the MG4. So it's up there. It's up there with the very, very best of class. As I say, it's not as good as the Megane. It's better than the ID3. It's better than the EC4 in terms of its handling, but not ride. And it's on a par with the Cupra Born, except it falls a little bit shorter on refinement. So that's where I would suggest we are. The steering feel, nice. As I say, at the moment I've got it in sport. There's a nice weight behind it. What I will say is different to the Cupra. One thing I found with the Cupra is, as I say, that just feels like you're going through, it's almost like you're going through an interpreter before the car responds to your inputs. The MG doesn't. The MG's got a bit more of an immediacy to it. There's a bit more communication going on, and I quite like that. And actually, in terms of the suspension, it's the same. There's a little bit more communication from the road, so I know the road surface a bit better. It's not uncomfortable, that's not what I mean. I don't mean as in it bumps and thumps. You just can feel a bit more through it. It's that Princess and a Pea type of scenario. You can just feel a bit more of the road surface through the car, and I quite like that. That's quite nice. I did a really long motorway drive with the car in my time with it as well, and The refinement at higher speed is very good as well. Again, not quite as good as the Cupra. Did a similar journey in the Cupra when we had it. It's not quite as good as that, but it's almost there. The seats are superb. I love these seats. It's a little bit like the Mustang Mach-E GT. There's this kind of wraparound bit here at the top of your shoulders, which just supports your shoulders really well, and they feel lovely. They feel absolutely fantastic. There's enough length in the squab, even for a shorty like me. It just supports the back of my knees, and I really like that. I wasn't keen on this squared off steering wheel. I really wasn't keen on it at all when it first arrived, and the first drove the car I didn't like it at all. I wish they'd made a round steering wheel. I've got used to it. It's not the horrible thing that it was when it first arrived. I still don't think it's ideal. I would still prefer a round wheel. There's just parts of it that just feel a bit where they kind of jab into the heel of my hand a little bit, so that's not great. What else to discuss? Oh, driving modes, right. So you've got driving modes, and that's another wee bugbear I've got with the MG. You had your modes and your brake regeneration on the MG5 and the ZS on buttons. Now they're on the screen, and that's the bit that I'm not so keen on. You've got to dive into this screen to get simple things like the brake regen or the driving modes. Now I get you're not going to be looking to change them all the time, so that's fair enough, but it's quite a difficult thing. And as I say, the screen being as kind of laggy as it is, when you go into it, then you've got to find it. Where is it? Driving, and it's quite small. So when you go into your driving modes, now there are 5 modes, driving modes. There's snow, in case it snows, eco, normal, sport, and custom. So you can set it up how you want it. And then there is 4 levels of brake regeneration: weak, medium, strong, and adaptive. And obviously the adaptive one works because it knows where you are. If you're coming up to, say, a roundabout, or you're using your distance guided cruise control, then it'll obviously start to apply heavier braking under that. And then it tells you on the dashboard there the level you've got: 1, 2, 3, or A for adaptive. So I do like the fact that it has all of that. I just wish it wasn't buried in a screen in a menu. I'd quite like to have seen it, as I say, like they used to have on the buttons down here on the ZS and the MG5. That would have been better. And again, as I say, it's all the other little things that you've just got to kind of go into this screen for when you're driving. And I say, because it's a bit laggy and it is quite small, the writing on it's really quite small, the font's small, the text is small, it's not easy to see at first glance. So that's my big bugbear there. But as I say, it's good. The brakes themselves, if you're using the pedal, they've got a nice feel to them. And again, one of my other things that I really like is when you feel a consistency in the weight of the controls, and that's what you get with the MG. So the weight, the sort of like the pressure you put on the brake, feels a comparison with the the pedal feel on the accelerator. So that's nice. As I say, the steering itself, even out of sport mode, there is a nice kind of communication from it. It's nice. If you're not in sport mode, if you're in, say, the normal mode, round about town, it's a nice light steering action. It's easy to park. It's very easy to see out of. You get good visibility around the car. There's a slightly thicker rear C-pillar at the back, but side windows, mirrors, everything else is good. You sit nice in a nice position in the car. I tend to sit lower in cars than some people, and I've got a good driving position. It's not too low, everything's within easy sight. As I said when we were discussing the interior, I like all the information the screen gives me, but it's just not easy to quickly look at a glance. There's a lot going on in this wee screen here. That's the only thing I would say. Steering wheel controls feel good. I like the fact that they are kind of physical buttons. They're not easy to hit with the heel of your hand like you do in the touch sensitive ones, Volkswagen. And as I say, you're not trying to fumble around in the dark with these silly touch sensitive controls that Volkswagen give you. Just, let's lay off that. Let's just go back to physical buttons. I really like it. And the buttons themselves are a nice size. As I say, you can operate if you're wearing gloves. So you don't have these. That's the thing you can't do with the Cupra or the ID. If you're wearing gloves, you can't swipe that volume or temperature control. It doesn't work. You've got to take your gloves off. Whereas here, you can use the volume control if you're wearing a pair of gloves. Simple, but you know, that's the practicality of living with a car. And that's it really, I have to say. There's not really an awful lot else I can say. This is a good car. The chassis dynamics are very good. There's a great turning on it. This isn't a sports hatch, it's not a hot hatch, nor should it feel like it, but they've got a really nice balance between sort of like a nice kind of sporty-ish suspension, so it doesn't roll in the corners. One of the things that I found the other day when I was driving a car that you're going to see very soon, it just, as soon as you get out of the town limits, it kind of fell apart. And I say it was one of those cars that felt that it's better to drive it at almost 6/10. If you try and push on, the whole thing just kind of crumbles and doesn't work. That's not the case with the MG4. It really responds well. And as I say, even if you're not in the sport mode, the suspension has got a nice consistency to it. The damper, the spring and damper rates that they've dialed into it are about right. They're about where I'd want this style of car to be. So when I am in the car on my own and I do want to have, you know, so like have a little bit of fun, it's there. But when I've got my wife and my daughter in the car, or the dog, and we're just wanting to just amble along around about town, there is a nice compliancy to the suspension. Hats off. This is, as I say, this is way up there with class best, and better than some cars that you would expect to be way ahead of MG at this point, because this is a real winner in my book. I like this car a lot. Now, as I said at the beginning of this road test, people these days maybe see MG as a purveyor of good value for money, kind of no frills cars. And in some respects, that is true. However, that's where things, in my opinion, change with the MG4. Now, the MG4, it's a bit like the Tesla Model 3. When we first drove that, we turned around and said you could no longer just say it's good for an electric car, because it stood head and shoulders alongside its peers. It was just a good car. And then before, maybe what we used to say about MG, well, it's good for the price. You can't do that now with the MG4, because it is as good as things like its contemporaries, as the Volkswagen ID3, as the Renault Megane E-Tech, as the Coupe Reborn. You know, you drive this car, you drive one of those, to be honest with you, you know, it's a comparable car, but it's still the value for money. Now, I don't want to trivialise money, because these days it's relatively hard to come by, and we're all watching the pennies. But get a load of this. The MG4 SE, the lead-in car, which is still over 200 miles of range, bear in mind, and still comes well equipped, starts at 25,995. If you go for an SE long range, which is the one that is the longest range of all three trim levels, that's at £28,500. If you want a trophy like this one, the top spec trophy with all the bells and whistles on it, that's £31,500, which is thousands of pounds less than the basic Volkswagen ID3 and Renault Megane E-Tech and Coupe Reborn, three of its biggest rivals. Now this week, when I've been filming this, I've also driven another Chinese brand that's coming into the UK, which I can't tell you about, but you'll be able to see in the next episode. And I thought even that was going to offer even better value for money than MG, and it doesn't. This is an outstanding car, let alone an outstanding car for the price. And that's before we start talking about the 7-year warranty that comes as standard on MG. They're a proper player in the marketplace. You need to take them seriously. So competition, well, I've pretty much mentioned them, haven't I? There's the Volkswagen ID3, the Coupe Reborn, the Renault Megane E-Tech, Citroën EC4, this new brand that's coming to the UK called Aura with their car. That's a C-sector hatchback, and as I say, we're road testing that in the next episode, so you'll be able to see what we think of that car as well. And then in 2023, we're also seeing electric versions of the venerable Vauxhall Astra and Peugeot 308. But bear in mind the value for money, as I say, that the MG gives. You're still looking at other cars, certainly with the range that this is capable of, and in terms of its equipment level. You could also compare things like the Volkswagen Golf, the Ford Focus, even though they are internal combustion engine cars, because a bit like we did with the Tesla Model 3, these electric cars now offer a range that's so good that they need to stand comparison with those piston engine variants as well. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new MG4. We like its styling. a choice of battery sizes. It's well equipped as standard. It's comfortable to drive. It has a class-leading warranty, and it offers outstanding value for money. We don't like the fact that although it's built on a dedicated EV platform, there's no under-bonnet storage and the boot isn't really best in class. And also some areas of the interior still lag behind the class best in terms of the infotainment system, and also the fact that you have to go through that infotainment system to get to some of the minor controls. Since we started AutoEV, we have seen the MG brand go from strength to strength. And as I say, when we drove the Tesla Model 3, I remember it well. We said it was a line in the sand moment. There was a car that you could stand there and say, it's not just good for an EV, it's just a good car. And the MG4 is another line in the sand moment for us. It stands comparison with all the other cars in its class, not just the electric cars, but also the piston engine equivalents, and it really is worthy of your attention. The fact that it offers such value for money with a class-leading warranty and dynamics that are as good as they are is something to behold. Is it the best car in its class? No, if you take price out of the equation, and as I say, I am conscious about discussing price with the sort of the cost of living crisis that's going on at the moment, so I do have to be careful. But if you do remove price from the equation, then I still think the Renault Megane E-Tech is the better car. It's better looking, it drives better. I just think it's a better car. But what I will say is this: the MG4 is way better than the ID3, the Volkswagen ID3. The fact that it costs thousands of pounds less and has a better warranty than it just makes that victory all the sweeter. Thank you for watching another episode of AutoEV, and of course thank you for supporting the channel. Remember, make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel by pressing the little bell button down below, because then you'll be notified of when our next video goes live. If you have enjoyed watching it, please do give it a thumbs up and leave us some comments down below, good or bad. Let me know your thoughts on the MG4. Do you have one on order? Have you driven it? Do you agree with me? Do you not? Let me know. Let's have a discussion. Remember, we're also across all social media platforms as well, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn, so please do give us a follow there as well, because I keep saying every little bit helps. And if you want to see even more reviews from this mad old Scotsman, then stick on our YouTube channel, where there's now well over 100 videos, including not just road test reviews, but twin tests, electric icons, van reviews, motorbike reviews by our good friend Charlie Berman, to name but a few. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching and supporting AutoEV. We'll see you again soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe, and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.